When my husband walked through our kitchen door at 6:47 a.m., smelling like vanilla perfume and someone else's sweat, I was standing at the counter making my coffee. He looked at me with this weird mix of guilt and relief, ran his hand through his disheveled hair, and said, "Babe, I need to tell you something. I slept with someone last night." I took a sip of my coffee. It was still too hot, burnt my tongue a little. I looked at him over the rim of my mug and said, "Congrats, Dylan." His face went completely blank, like I just told him the sky was green. "What?" he stammered. "Congrats, Dylan," I repeated, setting my mug down on the granite countertop. "Sounds like you had a fun night." I'm Natalie, by the way, 34 years old, marketing director at a tech startup in Austin, Texas, married to Dylan for 6 years, together for 9. And no, I hadn't lost my mind. I hadn't become some emotionless robot overnight. What I had become was something far more dangerous. A woman who'd been waiting for this exact moment for the last 3 months. See, here's the thing about liars and cheaters. They always think they're smarter than you. They think you don't notice the late nights, the password changes, the sudden gym obsession. If you've ever dealt with someone who thought they could play you like a fool, hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, because this story gets wild. And subscribe. You're going to want to see how this plays out. Trust me. Let me rewind to where this really started, because you need to understand how we got here. 3 months ago, in late July, Dylan started acting different. Small things at first. He'd always been the type to leave his phone face up on the coffee table, notifications lighting up like a Christmas tree. Suddenly, it was always face down, always on silent, always in his pocket. He worked in sales for a medical device company, so irregular hours weren't unusual. But the 9 p.m. client dinners started happening 3 times a week. The weekend conferences in Dallas and Houston became monthly events. And he started going to the gym at 5:30 a.m., which was hilarious considering the man had previously thought a gym membership was just an expensive way to feel guilty about not exercising. I'm not an idiot. I've watched enough true crime documentaries while folding laundry to know the signs. But here's what most people don't understand about infidelity. Sometimes you know something is happening, but you don't want to blow up your entire life over a suspicion. You wait. You watch. You gather information like you're building a case for court. So, I became a detective in my own marriage. First, I checked our cell phone records online. There was one number that appeared constantly. Calls, texts, all hours. I reverse searched it on one of those people finder websites. The number belonged to a woman named Sienna Holt, 28 years old, a pharmaceutical sales rep based in Austin, Texas. I found her Instagram, public, thank God, and there she was. Tall, blonde, the kind of woman who posted gym selfies with captions like, "Earned this glass of wine" and "blessed life." The kind of woman my husband would absolutely be attracted to. The kind of woman who probably laughed at his stupid jokes about golf and Bitcoin. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I did something that would probably horrify a therapist, but felt absolutely necessary to me. I created a fake Instagram account. Basic profile, no posts, generic name, Jessica Patterson from San Antonio. I followed about 200 random accounts to make it look real, then sent Sienna a follow request. She accepted within an hour. For weeks, I watched her stories like they were episodes of my new favorite show. And there he was. Occasionally, never tagged, never obvious, but there. A man's hand holding a wine glass in the background of her dinner photo. A work friend whose face was conveniently cut off in a group shot. A cryptic post that said, "Sometimes the best things are the things you're not supposed to have." with a sunset photo from Mount Bonnell where Dylan had told me he was meeting a client. But watching wasn't enough. I needed proof. Real proof. The kind that couldn't be explained away with, she's just a colleague, or you're being paranoid. So, I did something that I'm not entirely proud of. I installed tracking software on his phone. Before you judge me too harshly, let me explain. Dylan and I had always had each other's passwords. It was this thing we'd agreed to early in our relationship. Total transparency, no secrets. So technically, I wasn't hacking into anything he hadn't already given me access to, technically. The app I used was designed for parents to monitor their kids' phones, but it worked just fine for monitoring a cheating husband. It ran in the background, invisible. I could see his texts, his location, his call logs, everything. And that's when I got the full picture. The texts between Dylan and Sienna were extensive. Hundreds of messages going back 5 months. They'd met at a medical sales conference in March. You were the only good thing about that boring panel on surgical innovations, he'd written to her. She'd responded with a winky face emoji. From there, it escalated. Flirting became explicit. Explicit became planning. They'd hooked up for the first time in April at a hotel near the Domain, that fancy shopping area in North Austin. After that, it was once or twice a week. Sometimes at her apartment, sometimes at hotels. Once, and this one really pissed me off, at our lake house in Marble Falls that his parents had given us as a wedding present. They had nicknames for each other. She called him D. He called her Sunshine. I actually gagged when I read that. But here's the thing that kept me from immediately burning his clothes in the backyard. The text also revealed something else. Dylan was getting sloppy. He was getting cocky. And people who get cocky make mistakes. In one conversation from early October, Sienna had written, "When are you finally going to tell her? I'm tired of being your secret." Dylan's response, "Soon, babe, I promise. I just need to figure out the right way to do it. She's going to freak out, and I need to make sure I protect my assets." Protect my assets. Like I was some kind of gold digger he needed to guard his precious bank account from. Never mind that I made $80,000 a year, almost as much as he did. Never mind that I helped him pay off his student loans when we first got married. Never mind that I supported him when he wanted to switch jobs 3 years ago and took a pay cut for 6 months. That text message was the moment I stopped being sad and started being strategic. I called a lawyer. A good one. Recommended by my friend Tasha, who'd gone through a messy divorce 2 years earlier. Her name was Patricia Rothman, and she had a reputation for being absolutely ruthless in court. I liked her immediately. Texas is a no-fault divorce state, Patricia explained in her downtown office surrounded by law books and framed degrees from UT Austin. But adultery can still affect the division of property and alimony if we play it right. Do you have proof? I showed her everything. The texts, the location data, the hotel receipt I'd found when I'd started checking our credit card statements more carefully, charges he'd obviously forgotten to hide, listed as Hyatt Regency Austin and Kimpton Hotel. She smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of a shark seeing blood in the water. "Here's what we're going to do," she said. Over the next month, I followed Patricia's instructions exactly. I didn't confront him. I didn't let on that I knew anything. I acted like the perfect, unsuspecting wife while I quietly photographed financial documents, made copies of bank statements, and transferred money from our joint savings account to a personal account my lawyer had helped me set up. All completely legal in Texas, she assured me, as long as I could prove the money was for legitimate expenses and not just spite. I documented everything. Dates, times, locations. I screenshot every text message between Dylan and Sienna. I kept a detailed log of his whereabouts based on the tracking app. And I waited for him to make his move. Patricia's strategy was simple. Let him confess on his own. Let him think he was in control of the narrative. Men like Dylan, she explained, needed to feel like they were the ones making the decisions. And when they felt that way, they got careless. He's going to tell you soon, Patricia predicted. Men like him always do. They want the relief of confession without the guilt of being caught. And when he does, you're going to act devastated but understanding. You're going to make him think you're the kind of woman who might actually forgive him. And then we're going to destroy him in divorce court. I should probably mention here that I'm not normally a vengeful person. Before all this, I was the friend who believed in second chances, who said things like, everyone makes mistakes and communication is key. I'd never even gotten revenge on an ex-boyfriend, not even the one in college who'd borrowed my car and returned it with an empty gas tank and someone else's underwear in the backseat. But something about Dylan's betrayal, about the calculated nature of it, about that text message where he talked about protecting his assets for me, it flipped a switch in my brain. I didn't just want a divorce, I wanted justice. The confession came on a Thursday morning in late October. That morning I mentioned at the beginning of this story, when he walked in smelling like vanilla and guilt. We'd been at a weird place for weeks. He'd been distant, distracted, clearly building up to something. The night before, he'd texted me that he was working late and would probably just crash at his buddy Jeremy's place downtown rather than make the drive home. Jeremy was a real person, a college friend who lived in a condo near Rainy Street, so it was plausible. But I checked the tracking app. Dylan wasn't at Jeremy's. He was at Sienna's apartment complex off South Lamar. He'd been there since 9 p.m. When he walked in that morning, I was ready. "Babe, I need to tell you something," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "I slept with someone last night." And I gave him my carefully practiced response. "Congrats." The confusion on his face was almost comical. This clearly wasn't the reaction he'd anticipated. He probably rehearsed this whole speech about how we'd grown apart and it just happened, and all the other cliches cheaters use to make themselves feel better. "What?" he said again, like maybe he'd heard him wrong the first time. "I said congratulations," I repeated, keeping my voice eerily calm. I picked up my phone and started scrolling through it casually like we were discussing the weather. "Sounds like you had a fun night. Was she good?" Dylan's face went from confused to horrified. You... what? Why are you acting like this?" "Like what?" I looked up at him and tilting my head. "Oh, you mean why I'm not screaming and crying? Sorry to disappoint. I guess I just don't really care that much." That wasn't true, obviously. I cared a lot. My heart was racing and my hands were shaking slightly as I held my phone. But I'd practiced this. I'd stood in front of my bathroom mirror for weeks, practicing this exact tone of voice, this exact facial expression, detached, unbothered, almost amused. "So, you don't care?" Dylan looked like I'd just told him his entire worldview was wrong. "But I cheated on you. I slept with another woman." "Yeah, I heard you the first time." I took another sip of coffee. "Her name's Sienna, right? The pharmaceutical rep? Blonde, kinda tall, really into CrossFit." The color drained from his face. "How did you—" "Please," I interrupted. "You've been coming home smelling like vanilla perfume for months. You really think I didn't notice? I'm not an idiot, Dylan." He sat down heavily at the kitchen table, like his legs couldn't support him anymore. Our golden retriever, Biscuit, wandered over and put his head in his lap, completely oblivious to the drama unfolding. Dogs are so lucky that way. "If you knew," he said slowly, "why didn't you say anything?" "Because I was curious," I said. I sat down across from him, cradling my coffee mug. "I wanted to see how long you'd keep it up. How long you'd lie to my face. How many times you'd use our lake house to screw your girlfriend. And how many times you'd tell me you were working late when you were actually at her place watching Netflix and doing God knows what else. His eyes widened. How much do you know? Everything, I said simply. I know you met her in March at that conference in San Antonio. I know you first hooked up in April. I know her address, her Instagram handle, her favorite brunch spot, that place on South Congress with the migas that she won't shut up about. I know you call her Sunshine. I know she wants you to leave me. I know you told her you needed to protect your assets before you could do that. Dylan looked like he might throw up. Natalie, I can explain. I don't want you to explain, I said. I want you to listen. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to pack a bag and leave this house today. You're going to stay with Jeremy or Sienna or whoever the hell you want, and then we're going to get divorced. Divorce? He looked genuinely shocked, like somehow this wasn't the obvious conclusion to confessing infidelity. Nat, come on, we can work through this. Couples therapy, maybe? No, I said firmly. We're done. You cheated on me. Repeatedly. For months. You used our lake house, Dylan. The one your parents gave us. Do you understand how disrespectful that is? Not just to me, but to your own family? I made a mistake, he said. And there it was, the classic cheater defense. Natalie, please, I love you. It was just, Sienna was just what? I challenged. Just convenient? Just exciting? Just young and blonde and willing to laugh at your jokes about cryptocurrency? He flinched. That's not fair. Fair, I laughed, and it came out harder than I intended. You want to talk about fair? You know what's not fair? Lying to your wife for 6 months. Spending our money on hotel rooms and dinners with your mistress. Making me look like an idiot in front of everyone who probably already knew what was going on. No one knows, he said quickly. I was careful. You really weren't, I said. Your boy Brad from the office, he knew. I ran into him at Whole Foods last month, and the way he couldn't look me in the eye told me everything. Sienna's friends knew. I've seen their comments on her Instagram posts. So happy for you, girl, and he's such a catch. Like I don't exist. Dylan put his head in his hands. Jesus Christ, Natalie, I'm so sorry. I really am. I never meant for it to go this far. But it did. And now we're here. We sat in silence for a moment. I could hear the AC kicking on, the hum of the refrigerator, Biscuit's tags jingling as he wandered over to his water bowl. What if I end it with her? Dylan said finally, looking up at me with what I'm sure he thought was a sincere expression. What if I cut off all contact, block her number, never see her again? Can we try to fix this? I actually considered it for about 3 seconds. Not because I wanted to, but because some small, sad part of me remembered the Dylan I'd fallen in love with 9 years ago. The guy who'd surprised me with breakfast tacos on my birthday, who'd driven 6 hours to help my mom move into her new house after my dad passed away, who'd held me while I cried when I didn't get the promotion I wanted at work. But that Dylan was gone. Or maybe he'd never really existed in the way I thought he did. No, I said. We can't fix this. I don't want to fix this. I want a divorce. Natalie, you need to leave. Today. Pack whatever you need and go. We can figure out the rest through lawyers. Lawyers? His voice got higher. Come on, we don't need to involve lawyers. We can handle this like adults. I smiled then. Really smiled. Oh, Dylan, we've already involved lawyers. I filed for divorce 3 weeks ago. You'll be served with papers today, actually. Probably around noon. His mouth fell open. You what? I filed 3 weeks ago, I repeated slowly, like I was talking to a child. I've been working with Patricia Rothman. You know, that divorce attorney Tasha used? The one who absolutely destroyed her ex-husband in court? Yeah, her. She's really good. Dylan stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. Are you serious right now? You planned this? This whole conversation was just you, what, rubbing it in my face? No, I said calmly. This whole conversation was me giving you the opportunity to confess on your own, which you did. So thanks for that. It'll look good in court that you admitted to the affair without me having to drag it out of you. You recorded this? He looked around frantically, like he might spot a hidden camera. I didn't need to. I have plenty of evidence already. Texts, photos, location data, hotel receipts. Did you know the Kimpton Hotel keeps records of all check-ins? Patricia got all of that through Discovery. We have dates, times, everything. His face went from pale to red. You've been spying on me? You've been cheating on me, I countered, for 6 months. So, yeah, I did some investigating. You know what's funny? You made it really easy. You used our joint credit card for most of the hotel rooms. You left your location tracking on. You texted her from your regular phone number instead of getting a burner. For someone who was trying to have a secret affair, you were remarkably sloppy about it. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. He looked like a fish gasping on a dock. I trusted you, he finally said. And the audacity of that statement almost made me laugh again. And I trusted you. Guess we're both disappointed. The doorbell rang. Dylan and I both froze. That's probably the process server, I said cheerfully, right on time. I got up and walked to the front door. Sure enough, there was a woman in her 40s holding a clipboard and a manila envelope. I'm looking for Dylan Westbrook. He's right here, I called over my shoulder. Dylan, someone here to see you. He came to the door like he was walking to his execution. The woman handed him the envelope with a practiced efficiency. You've been served. Have a nice day. She left. Dylan stood in the doorway, holding the envelope like it might explode. You should probably read that, I suggested. It outlines the terms Patricia is proposing. 50-50 split of assets, except for the lake house, since you defiled it. You can have the Audi, I'll keep the Subaru. We'll split Biscuit's custody, even though we both know he likes me better. You can't do this, he said weakly. I absolutely can. And I am. Now pack your stuff and get out of my house. Our house, he corrected automatically. My house in about 6 months, when the divorce is finalized. Now go. He left that afternoon, packed 2 suitcases, most of his clothes, his laptop, his golf clubs. He kept trying to start conversations, like, we need to talk about this. You're making a huge mistake. You're going to regret this. But I just turned up the music and ignored him. I put on Fleetwood Mac's Rumors album because if you're going through a divorce, you might as well have the right soundtrack. When he finally walked out the door, Biscuit whined a little. I sat down on the floor and scratched behind his ears. It's okay, buddy. We're better off. The next few months were a blur of legal proceedings, paperwork, and surprisingly civil text message exchanges about who owned which kitchen appliance and when Dylan could come by to pick up the rest of his stuff. Sienna called me once. It was late November, about 3 weeks after Dylan moved out. I was home alone, watching the Great British Bake Off and eating ice cream straight out of the carton, the exact cliché I'd been trying to avoid. But sometimes clichés exist for a reason. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? This is Sienna Holt. I think we need to talk. Talk about what? About Dylan. About what happened. I feel like I owe you an explanation. I laughed. I couldn't help it. You don't owe me anything, Sienna. You slept with my husband multiple times in my lake house. There's no explanation that makes that okay. I know, she said quietly. I know, and I'm not trying to justify it. I didn't know he was going to do this. Do what? Leave me too, she said, and I heard her voice crack. He moved in with me after you kicked him out. He stayed for 2 weeks, told me we were going to be together, that you were just a chapter closing, that I was his future. And then, last week, he just left, packed up his stuff while I was at work, and left me a note saying he needed space to figure things out. I should have felt vindicated. I should have felt that sweet rush of schadenfreude of knowing the other woman got what she deserved. Instead, I just felt tired. "I'm sorry," I said, "and I meant it. That sucks." "Did he do this to you too? Just leave without really explaining?" "He didn't leave me," I said. "I left him after I found out about you." "How did you find out?" I considered lying, keeping my cards close to my chest, but what was the point now? I've known for months. I tracked his phone, read his texts, followed him a few times. I knew everything. "Everything?" She sounded horrified. "Everything," I confirmed. "Every hotel, every date, every lie he told me about working late. I knew it all. And I just waited for him to confess so I could divorce him on my terms." Jesus. That's... I don't know if that's brilliant or terrifying. Both, probably. "For what it's worth," she said, "I really am sorry. Not just sorry I got caught, or sorry it ended badly. Actually sorry. I knew he was married. I knew it was wrong. I did it anyway because I thought... I don't know what I thought. That he was special, I guess? That we were different? You weren't," I said, not unkindly. "You were just the next thing. And there'll probably be someone after you, too." "Yeah," she said softly. "I'm starting to realize that." We talked for a few more minutes. She told me Dylan was texting her constantly, begging her to take him back, telling her he'd made a mistake, and I told her she should block her number and move on with her life. She agreed. Before we hung up, she said something that stuck with me. "You know what the crazy thing is? He told me you were cold, that you didn't understand him, that you'd grown apart. But the way you're handling this, you're not cold at all. You're just smart." "Thanks," I said. "I think." After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, thinking about Dylan, about who he really was underneath the charm and the jokes and the promises, about how you can spend years with someone and still not really know them. The divorce was finalized in March. 6 months, just like Patricia predicted. The settlement was heavily in my favor. Texas might be a no-fault state, but judges still don't look kindly on adultery, especially when there's as much documented evidence as I'd provided. I got the house, the lake house, the Subaru, and 2/3 of our savings. Dylan got the Audi, his 401k, and a very expensive lesson about the consequences of infidelity. He tried to fight some of it, hired his own lawyer, argued that I had violated his privacy by tracking his phone and reading his messages. But as Patricia gleefully pointed out, I'd had his passwords with his permission, and Texas law is pretty forgiving about spouses investigating potential infidelity. The judge wasn't sympathetic to Dylan's claims. On the day the divorce was finalized, Patricia took me out for champagne at this fancy bar downtown. We sat on the rooftop patio, looking out over the Austin skyline as the sun set. "You did good, kid," Patricia said, raising her glass. "Not a lot of people have the stomach to play the long game like that." "I'm not sure it was playing a game," I said. "It was more like collecting evidence for the inevitable." "Same thing," she said. "And you came out on top. That's what matters." I clinked my glass against hers and took a sip. The champagne was expensive and tasted like victory. It's been about 8 months now since that morning Dylan walked in and confessed. 8 months since I said, "Congrats," and watched his world fall apart. People ask me sometimes if I regret how I handled it, if I wish I'd confronted him earlier or tried harder to save the marriage, or been less calculating about the whole thing. The answer is no, not even a little bit. Because here's what I learned from that whole nightmare. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to stop being kind to people who don't deserve it. Sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes trust, once broken, can't be repaired no matter how much therapy you throw at it. And sometimes the best revenge isn't some elaborate scheme. It's just living well, moving on, and refusing to let someone else's betrayal define your worth. I still live in our house, my house now. I've redecorated a little. The bedroom has new paint, new bedding, new everything. I got rid of the couch Dylan picked out and replaced it with one I actually like. I adopted a cat, a gray tabby I named Waffles, because Biscuit was getting lonely on the weeks when Dylan had custody. My job is going well. I got that promotion I wanted, the one Dylan barely congratulated me on because he was too busy texting Sienna. I make good money. I have good friends. I go to therapy not because I'm broken, but because I want to understand why I stayed quiet so long instead of trusting my gut earlier. I date sometimes. Nothing serious yet, but I'm not in a hurry. I'm learning to trust again slowly, learning that not everyone is a liar, learning to spot the red flags earlier and actually do something about them instead of explaining them away. I ran into Dylan once about a month ago at the H-E-B on South Congress. We were both in the produce section, reaching for avocados at the same time. He looked tired, older. He had grown a beard that didn't quite suit him. "Hey," he said awkwardly. "Hey," I replied. "How have you been?" "Good," I said honestly. "Really good, actually. You?" "Fine," he said, but his eyes told a different story. I'm I'm living up north now. Got a new job, selling IT solutions." "That's great," I said. And I meant it. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I was just indifferent. And that felt like the truest form of closure. "Natalie," he said as I started to walk away, "I really am sorry about everything. I was an idiot." I turned back to look at him, really look at him. And I realized I didn't recognize the man standing in front of me. Or maybe I'd never really known him at all. "Yeah," I said, simply. "You were." And then I walked away, bought my groceries, went home to my house, played with my dog and my cat, and made myself dinner while listening to a true crime podcast about a woman who'd killed her husband for the insurance money. I didn't kill Dylan, obviously, but I did kill the version of myself that would have forgiven him, taken him back, convinced myself that love's supposed to hurt. That version of me is gone, and good riddance. The new version, she says congrats to confessions and means it as the ultimate dismissal. She collects evidence before burning bridges. She gets revenge through lawyers and legal settlements instead of screaming matches and broken dishes. She's smarter, harder, less willing to accept crumbs of affection from people who should be offering full meals. She's me, and I like her a hell of a lot more than the old version. So that's my story. The story of how I said congrats to my cheating husband and walked away with everything that mattered. If this resonated with you, if you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, if you've ever had to be smarter than you wanted to be just to protect yourself, drop a comment. Tell me your story. Tell me where you're watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe because believe me, the world is full of Dylans and Siennas, and we need to share notes. Turn on those notifications because I've got more stories like this, and they only get more interesting. Team Natalie for the win.